Okay, everyone. So now what we're going to do is we're going to make these 7 puzzle pieces. This is the 7 puzzle pieces that come together to make what we call the Soma cube. And if you really look at these individual pieces, you'll see that there are a lot of similarities between them, particularly if you look at the smaller L-shaped piece. You can actually find that same piece in each of the other shapes. So when I create these to be efficient, what I do is I create that small L-shaped piece, and then I just modify it to create the remaining 6 shapes. So I'll show you how I do that by just starting with the first one. And you'll see that we're going to be using the same commands and tools that we used in the first module to make these 7 pieces. So I'm going to start with the rectangle tool. And again, there's a bunch of different ways that you can make these shapes, and I encourage you to try different ways. But I'm just going to show you, some of the ways that I go about it. So I'm going to start with this rectangle, which is part of the L, not the entire L. It's going to be 2 inches by 1 inch, and I'll hit enter. And you'll see that when I hit enter, it looks like I didn't actually draw anything or create anything, but I really did. The problem here, which you're definitely going to experience, is I'm really zoomed out very far. So if this happens to you and you think that you didn't create anything or you don't really know what's going on, what I always say is, when in doubt, use zoom extents. So what zoom extents does is it will zoom in as far as it possibly can without cutting off any of your geometry. So basically it fills your screen with what you've created. So when I hit zoom extents, it fills my screen with whatever it is I made. If I had more than one object, I did zoom extents, same thing. It fills my screen with whatever I've created. So when in doubt, zoom extents. So here I am, I have part of this shape, and again, there's a lot of different ways I could make this. What I'm going to choose to do is, once I've made part of this L shape, 2 inches by 1 inch, I'm going to push pull up another inch. And again, I can work really quickly by using my inference points. If I snap to this midpoint, I know that I am 1 inch from here to here, right? Because I have a 2-inch span, so half of that is going to be that 1 inch. And now I've broken up my 2 faces, I can push pull out an inch. So just like that, I've created this first piece. Now, what I could do is I could make several copies of this same exact piece. And then I could modify each of those copies. And I could make every single piece. But what I really want to do is give you some more experience and some more opportunities to try to create things from scratch. So although I could keep, modifying this individual shape, I don't want you to do that just yet. You will do that, right, when we talk about becoming efficient in SketchUp. But for now, what I'd like you to do is, again, start with a new shape and maybe try a different technique. So if I'm going to make the T-shaped block, for instance, maybe I will do it by creating a rectangle that's the overall size. So at its widest point, the T-shape is 3 inches by 2 inches. And I'm going to use the tape measure tool. I'm going to kind of trace out that shape. You can even see, right, we have that T-shape in the guidelines here. Put a little crossing window just to select the entities I want to remove. I can push pull up. Now again, there's a lot of different ways to become efficient in SketchUp. And another way that I want to show you are some shortcuts with push-pull. So up until now, when I've been using push-pull, I've been clicking just once and releasing, and then typing in my distance that I want to push-pull, which is in this case going to be 1 inch once again. But if I already have an entity that's an inch, you see all of these are 1 inch, I can use push-pull, and I can inference these other shapes. So as I click to push pull, instead of typing in 1 inch, I can just hover over and snap to another piece of geometry here. And this one I'm going to make the longer L-shaped piece. Okay, so I'm going to create this next shape by laying out guidelines, right, with the tape measure tool. And then I'm going to show you another shortcut for push-pull that we haven't used yet. So this time I'm going to create that Z shape. Again, there's just a bunch of different ways we can make this happen. So for push-pull, so far we have chosen push-pull, clicked once, and then typed in 1, enter. Another thing we've done is we've clicked on a face and we've chosen another face to kind of reference and click. But if you've already used the push-pull tool, then SketchUp will remember the last distance at which you push-pulled. So it already knows that I have a depth of 1. So all I need to do is when I have the command initiated is I just need to double click on the face and it will automatically push-pull at whatever my last depth was. So if my last depth was 3 inches, then if I had double clicked, it would have been 3 inches. But since my last depth was 1 inch, that's what we have kind of maintained. So again, just really quick, efficient ways to create 3-dimensional shapes. So we have 4 of our 7 shapes, so we need to keep going. And like I told you, this initial shape, this kind of smaller L shape, is present in every single shape here. So now that I've shown you a few different ways to create it from scratch, I'm going to try to be a little bit more efficient. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this shape. So to copy something, we need to make sure it's completely selected. So I triple clicked my shape. And what I could do is I could do edit copy, right, or Control C or Command C if you're on a Mac. And then I could paste it. Right, and I can click and drop it wherever I want. So I could do that, but I rarely do that. What I do instead is I use a shortcut that's kind of nested within the Move tool. So the Move tool is up here, and it does what you'd think it would do, is it lets you move an object from one place. Right? If you click from here, this inference point, to anywhere else, it will move it from one place to another. But if you start the Move tool and you hit Control, you can see we have a little plus sign that just showed up on our cursor. And instead of moving something, we'll create a copy of it. And that's how I almost always copy, is within the Move command. I can do it again. And again. Okay, so just really quick, efficient ways to create copies. And then I can just modify these 3 blocks to make the rest of our shapes. Double click. Oh, sometimes when you do that, it's going to push pull in the direction you didn't want it to. So sometimes that happens. And when it does happen, sometimes we get stray lines here. So we always want to make sure we clean up our geometry as we go. Oh, and I can see here that I left a stray line that I didn't notice because of this blue axis here. So now we're all good. You want to be careful when you make these two that you don't make them the same. They are very similar, but they're actually, I'm going to show you how to rotate in a moment, but for the sake of time, I just want to show you they are not the same. Okay, they are the mirror image of one another. So when you make these, for the puzzle cube to actually be able to come together, these need to be the mirror image of each other, not identical copies. Okay, so here we have our 7 shapes. Hopefully you were able to create them. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to add materials or colors to these so that we can distinguish one from the other.